I'm obsessed with violence and anxiety. I'm running out of options. Cut them all my life just like a photo. I just crop them. If they start to bother me, I cut them up or stop them. Why am I so ignorant? Why am I so toxic? I don't want that many friends in the first place. Most people I would depend.
Good day everyone, this is Voukoder and this is my Adobe After Effects tutorial for editing Apex Legends. First and foremost, you will want to go to the description below, which I have linked a Google Drive that I set up that looks like this. You click download and you make sure you install it. Once you're done downloading, it should look something like this, and you want to make sure that you install firstly Adobe After Effects if you don't have it already. Use any torrent client that you want. I use this one called Deluge, D-E-L-U-G-E. Then you want to install a transition plugin. So this one is called Mr. Horse. It's a transition plugin. Just double click the exe. It's free to use. And then after that, you want to make sure you install RSMB motion blur. This is the motion blur that I use for all my clips. You want to install, you extract this zip file. It will come out here. Just make sure you double click setup.exe. It will ask you for a license key actually. So you want to open the text file above and copy paste the pro version. Do not copy the regular version, just copy this top pro version right here. So just use the name and the serial. And it should install just fine. And the last thing you will need to install is Voukoder renderer. So for this one, you just double click this. And you just click next. Next. And make sure that it's in the right folder, but just for the most part it should already be like automatically found. And you just click install. And if you have any issues with installing Voukoder renderer, just make sure that you go in the description below. I will link a YouTube video. Everything has YouTube videos teaching you how to install. And the last thing you need to install is actually 4K Upscaler if you are interested on how I upscale my files. So the first thing you need to open is Windows PowerShell, right, like that. And you actually copy the code that I sent below, right here. Just copy this entire chunk. Then you click enter. So it should install. Just like that, it's already installed. It will not be as fast because I already have it here. And just make sure that you remember that there's this new thing in your send to Windows folder called CTT Upscaler, and we'll be touching that later on in the video. So when you first open After Effects, for those of you that are newer to After Effects, you might want to listen to what I have to say right now. If not, you can just skip ahead to the next timestamp. The first and foremost, you need to create a new project, right? You click new, file, new project, just like this. So this is what it looks like by default. What you want to do is click on composition, new composition, and ensure that you have the same settings as me. So you want to make sure that your composition is 1920 by 1080. This is square pixels and the frame rate is 60. And the duration, you have to set it to any duration you want. For this tutorial, I'll set it to 1 minute. And we'll make the background a black color. And I'll run through quickly what everything does. The first thing you want to know is that there's a project window, which is the left side here, right here, what I'm circling. And this consists of everything that you want to use in your project. Let's say for example, I want to import a clip. By default, it will be empty here. So let's say I want to import this 360 creable clip, right? All you need to do is just drag from your window and drag it on top here. And it will automatically import. So you just wait for it to import. So we have imported it in. It will appear highlighted right here. If you want to start editing, you drag your clip from the project window and you drag it to your composition right here. So this is your timeline. So only when you drag it here, then you appear in your preview window. And there's an effects tab. So this has all the effects that you have downloaded so far. So in the preview window, there is a few settings right here that you can change. For the most part, if you want to see in full quality, you put it to full. But when you are editing, I suggest you put it to either third or quarter, because when you are rendering your footage to play back your footage, if you put it at full, you'll be very laggy. I'll explain what layer properties are. Let's say you have a clip right here. Mine is a 1728 by 1080 clip. So right now when I drag it into my composition, which is 1920 by 1080, there will be black bars. So how do you fix that? What you want to do is actually when you click on the arrow beside the layer here, it will give you a lot of different options. So right here there's a anchor point, position, scale, rotation, opacity. You can change all of this by editing the the numeric values here. So for any stretch resolution, you want to ensure that for scale, you just make sure you unlink the X and Y and you stretch out this left one. And you make sure you stretch it out all the way until it covers the entire screen. For 1720 by 1080, the numeric value, like which is perfect, is 111.1. So there is also the position keyframe. You can change your position of your clip. You can unlink it. You can link it back and start scaling back and forth like that. You can rotate as well as opacity. So opacity is one of the more important ones, and scale. So opacity, you can set it to 0 and like let it fade in. So keyframes are basically a way for you to animate your clip. So let's say for example, I want this clip to fade in from black to the clip, right? So what I do is actually I click on this stopwatch right here, which is 100% opacity right now, and it actually creates a keyframe at 0 seconds. And I can actually figure, maybe let's say I want to do 1 second transition, right? And I click this diamond right here to add another keyframe at 1 second. And I actually go back here, click on the keyframe, make sure that this time scrub is actually like exact on the keyframe. You can click plus or equal sign and make sure that it's exact, and you set this opacity to 0. So what that does is actually it keyframes here the starting 0 seconds at 0% opacity all the way to 100% like that. So I do have a few hotkeys that I will list down below in the description if you guys forget any of them. Some hotkeys that you should actually remember, like right now, is Ctrl S to save your file. So obviously you want to save your file somewhere first. So you just click Ctrl Shift S to either Ctrl Shift S, or you can go save as, and then you just find exactly where you want to save your file. Or maybe you'll save this as tutorial and you just click save. Then after that, every time you want to save your file after you edit something, just click Ctrl S. Please make this a habit, it's very important. Adjustment layers. What are adjustment layers? Adjustment layers are basically an effect layer that you can add on top of your clips to edit how the clips below it look. So let's say for example I want to add an adjustment layer. I go under layer, new, and I click adjustment layer right here. So it creates this purple layer right here where I can add anything I want to it. But I want to add, I want this clip to be brighter. So I search under effects, and there is actually a thing under color correction called brightness and contrast. I drag it onto the clip, onto the adjustment layer, and I make sure that I can actually edit the values right here. So I want it to be brighter, let's say. I just click 20, or I can just drag it and make the clip brighter, so it looks so much better like that. Maybe even increase the contrast a bit. Maybe let's say 20 and 40 brightness. So for example, so that's so much of a difference. You can actually like toggle right here. Other effects that I use for my adjustment layer will actually be a vibrance color correction. Just search vibrance in effects, drag it onto your adjustment layer. Set this to maybe, let's say 40. There is another effect called red giant looks. If I search looks right here, I can type, and I actually drag this onto my adjustment layer. So for this plugin, you will actually have to install it by yourself. I will link it in the description below. There's a tutorial on how you can install it. And once you install it, you will have to save your project, restart After Effects, and it should appear like that in your effects and presets window. And you just drag it to your adjustment layer. So once you go and add into looks, you make sure you just click edit right here. So for the presets for the looks, you want to actually, if you want all these different custom looks that I have, you want to go under the settings icon here. You go under view presets folder, and you can actually copy and paste under right here. Just copy everything and you paste it into the folder that it leads you to. You can actually see that I added a contrast. So how you do that is you go under tools, it'll appear all the tools here. you drag contrast over. I set it to plus 0.15, 0.18 pivot, and I also added a curves. Just go under tools, add subject, you drag the curves down here, make sure it's in the subject panel. Under curves, you actually just, by default it's like this, it's just a straight line. What you want to do is click on the bottom part and make like an S shape like this. So what this does is actually, this part is the shadows and this part is the highlights. So you make sure the highlights are brighter and the shadows are darker. And I do have another effect that I like to use, but I don't use it very sparingly. Under Red Giant, the matte section right here. So if you just click here and you go under tools, it should appear these settings. So there's a diffusion setting you can actually drag and drop right here. Right now I have it disabled. This is what it looks like when it's enabled. Anything with that's bright or like the skylight is very soft now. So what it does is diffuses the light. You can just copy my settings here if you want. But for the most part, by default, you want to make sure that you drag this color picker all the way to white. I think I much prefer white depending on the scene. So I only use this setting if I'm like going for like a more cinematic feel, or like when I'm doing slow-mo clips of people dying after I down someone with a Kraber. And so for the most part, that's like all the settings I use. 3 different effects for the adjustment layer, and I'll leave it as such. So you want to make sure that this adjustment layer is locked so that you don't touch it anymore. And make sure that this adjustment layer always stays on top of all your clips so that it affects everything below it, right? I'll actually teach you guys how to do transitions. For example, if you have your OBS clips or shadow play clips that are too long, you want to make sure you go all the way to the point of time. You can just drag left, and make sure you find the point of time where you want your clip to, where you know your clip is going to start. Right here is where I want the clip to cut, right? So what you do actually is you just click Control on your keyboard, press Control Shift D, and it actually cuts the clip exactly where your scrubber is. And what I do with the front part of that is just click Delete or Backspace, and it deletes the whole thing. So I make sure I hold Shift when I drag so that it snaps to the start right here. It's a bit loud, so under audio, if you click the arrows right here under audio, I'm gonna reduce the volume by a bit, maybe minus 10 decibels. I'm gonna render this in third, maybe it's a bit laggy. So right here, all the way until, let's say when I down this ash, right? That's where I want to stop the clip. So I just press Ctrl Shift D again, and I delete the back portion. So let's say I want to edit it so that when I kill the ash, right here, kill the ash right here, I want this clip to slow down. How do you do that? So what you want to do is on the layer, when you select it, you can right click, go under time, enable time remapping. And what this does is actually it allows you to start editing the slow-mo of your clip basically. What you want to do is at the start of your clip, you make sure you click the diamond here to keyframe it. Then all the way here, just before just as I'm killing the ash right here, as she becomes a death box right here, right? I make sure I keyframe again. I go to the end of the clip where she dies. Press plus or equals to zoom in. What I do actually is I have these 2 points in time where the ash is becoming a death box, and I want to slow that down. So what I do is I take the back keyframe and I actually drag this out, and it actually makes this portion of time even longer. And you want to make sure that you drag this out as well. Hold shift so that it's exactly where the diamond is. And so what that does is actually slows down the last part of the clip. Okay. What is what it looks like? Right there, I can see it slows down like that. So let's say that's the end of my first clip. I want it to transition into another clip. I want to transition these 2 clips, right? I drag in the other clip, and I make sure I press hold shift when I'm doing it, so that when I drag it over here, you actually snap in place exactly right after the previous clip. So sometimes if you don't do it properly, there will be like frames in between, so make sure you do it properly. If you guys have installed Animation Composer already, which is actually this one, Mr. Horse, So if you go under window, there will be this thing called Animation Composer 3. You open this, it's actually a plugin window. And for the most part, there's a lot of stuff that you can use, like text, or maybe even, let's say, okay, just for showcasing purposes, there's a lot of stuff that you can use with this. So for the tutorial's purpose, we want transitions. We go under precoms, transitions. Then the one that I always use is these three: shake and distort, generated light leak 1 and 2. Say I want to use this light leak, right? I want to ensure that my timeline marker is exactly in between the two clips. I select the top clip, and under here I just click add. And what does that actually creates a light leak transition to transition between two clips. It's pretty sick. And it even allows you, if you click on the transition, you can actually change the colors of the clip. So let's say I want it to be blue, since it's more blue towards the world's edge, right? So you can actually just change the color, click in, you can change all the transition gradient colors right here. And another effect I like to add is called shake and distort. I just click add. So yeah, you want to make sure that your cut marker is right on top, or right where the cut is in between the two clips. And what this transition does is actually makes the shake, as you can see, there's like a shake right before the transition. And this is actually the default transition I use for most of my clips. What I would advise is not to transition between every single clip, and actually only transition when maybe there's like a scene change, like storm point to world's edge, or like a very big color change. So another transition I always like to use right here, this is what it should look like for you. You go under transitions. This is all in the Google Drive. If you want to know what they look like, there's actually a link in the description below where you can see all the different transitions. So for this tutorial, let's use digital 2. Go under digital and you drag this in. Under here, digital. So I want digital 2. So I just drag in any one that's clean, fast, like many different types. You just like experiment and see which one you want. So it will appear once you drag it in. To save time, you can just click open bracket and bring time, just time scrub. It will appear right here. You want to make sure that you enable this sun icon. Make sure that every single transition you drag in from this whole pack, you always click this icon right here. It looks like a mini sun. It's just a very simple preset that you can use. I'll teach you guys how I do the slow-mo kill again. So what I do is actually I do the exact same thing. Let's say I want this music. I've already marked out exactly where I want the beat drops are, sort of like the generic beat drops. So how you do that is actually you click on the layer and you scrub through, let it run. Every time you want to create a marker on your layer, just click F8. So every time there's like a very significant beat drop, I'll just mark it. Right here is when the beat drops, and I want this beat drop to sync up exactly to when I kill the GB. So right here. Okay, let's say I've already slowed it down, right? Right here, exactly the same as just now. When I shoot the GB and I'm killing, I know I'm gonna kill him. I do the exact same thing. I right click enable time remapping. I use the keyframe method and I drag it out. So this part is actually slowed down. Actually, if I want a more emphasized slow-mo effect, what I do is I click Ctrl+Shift+D so I can edit this slow-mo portion by its own. I'll add in maybe as we know just now, there's looks. Right here, just click and drag and drop here. And the diffusion can actually, like, you know, make it look a bit more emphasized, a bit more cinematic, smoky. And maybe for even more emphasis, we'll do like a 120 scale. So you just click S, open up scale, and 120 like that. So what that does is actually it zooms in on the clip just as I down the GB. Explore all the different presets in looks and see which one works for you. So for finishing touches, let's say I want to add motion blur to my clips, right? So we have already installed it. If you followed my Google Drive link. You want to go in and search under effects as RSMB. You just drag and drop RSMB Pro. I want to ensure that and use GPU is on, and you just follow all of my settings. And what you need to know that you can change, if you don't want so much motion blur, you can actually change this. If I'm not wrong, it's 0.5 by default. You can actually change it to maybe 0.3 to make sure that there's not so much motion blur in the clip. So sometimes it gets a bit too much, you know. More focusing on the aim rather than the movement. I'll just do like a 0.3. Okay, so you want to ensure that you have this motion blur setting. You can copy it and paste it to every single clip that you have. So make sure it's on every single like TO clip. So I just make sure I Ctrl C right here. So now I have motion blur on every single clip. What that looks like is actually, as you can see, quite a significant change. If I disable it, enable it. So it makes it a bit more cinematic. So once you're done with your project, let's say, I want to end it right here. You want to ensure that the top bar right here, as you can see, there's like this gray bar with two blue areas. So this what it shows is your work area. And if you want to render out only this portion, you want to ensure that you click on the blue portion and you drag it all the way to the end, exactly where your clip ends. So hold shift and you drag it here. What you want to know is I use this renderer called Voukoder renderer. You can follow the link below. There's a YouTube description. So once you install it, you just go under File, Export, and you click Add to Render Queue. Under your render queue, it should appear like that. You want to go under Output Module, click on the blue Lossless, and you make sure you change the format to Voukoder. So this is the one that we installed. And under Form, you click Format Options here. You can actually change the settings for the renderer. So what I use for YouTube videos is mostly H.264, NVIDIA NVENC. What this does is actually exports it to MP4. And for the most part, I would advise you guys to use this. Just click Apply, click OK. You don't have, just follow all my settings. You don't have to change anything if I'm not wrong. Click OK. And you can actually change where you want it to go. Let's say we'll call it tutorial new, save, and you just click render. And you just let it run. So you can see the blue bar right here is for the progress. You run through your entire project. And once it reaches the end, it will make a sound. And you're pretty much done. I already had one. So this tutorial one. This is what it looks like. If I want to upscale it for YouTube or your montage, you want to right click your video and click send to, and then you click CTT Upscaler 2.0. What that does is actually it starts out a command shell that starts upscaling your clip. So once this is done, it makes a sound and actually appears like this. Right. So this is a full 4K 60 FPS montage, and it's actually so simple to create. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the tutorial. If you guys have any questions, do not hesitate to ask me in my Discord DMs or in the comments below. If you enjoyed this tutorial, do leave a like and comment for the algorithm, or subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Thank you.